Welcome, dear friends, to this Sunday afternoon Sutta Study program. And with a special joyful welcome to Ayya Brahmavara, who is coming to us from the UK. There you are. As you can see, wherever you were the last time we saw you, the room was yellow, and you're now in a space which is more on the white side. The sutta that I've chosen for today is the Cunda Sutta, which is number 100 in the book of Tens of the numerical discourses, number 176. I chose that sutta in particular because I had been remembering a particular phrase about skillful speech, which is very famous to us in the long discourses of the discourse on the fruits of recluseship, which is something that every monastic really needs to study very well and learn very well. The sentence is, literally, are you finding the, let me see, are you finding the page number? Yeah? Okay. Here, of the broken, he is the conciliator. Of unity, he is the supporter. Enjoying harmony, fond of harmony, delighting in harmony, a speaker of peacemaking words. This description appears, I searched through Sutta Central to see how that particular sentence or something like it was used, and I found that it almost always comes up in a very similar type of concept about one who becomes disillusioned with life in samsara and encounters the teaching of the Buddha, resolves to leave the home life and undertakes the gradual training. So within the section about sila or virtue, this part about the skillfulness with the speaking up for peace is where that comes, always in the same way. And then of all the different times when it occurred, the one that I've selected for today, that Cunda Sutta, is relatively concise, just focusing on 10 wholesome kammas, or 10 wholesome actions. Therefore, the title that I am giving to the YouTube is 10 Good Deeds for a Peaceful World, which sounds like a snappy kind of a how-to or a self-help topic, and I hope that people will want to watch it. But I hope that as we look over the sutta, we may think about it in terms of this larger theme of peacefulness that we're trying to develop now, and think about how these wholesome kammas in a variety of different ways help with our internal peace and help externally to support having a more peaceful world. So having said that much, I'm going to open the sutta. Here it is in Bhante Sujata's translation. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Pava in Cunda the smith's mango grove. Then Cunda the smith went to the Buddha, bowed down, and sat to one side. And the Buddha said to him, Cunda, whose purity do you believe in? And he said, Sir, I believe in the purity advocated by the Western Brahmins, draped with moss, who carry pitchers, serve the sacred flame, and immerse themselves in water. If one of the people in the room who has the wisdom publication notices a footnote, if you put your hand up, I might invite you to read out the footnote. But Cunda, the Buddha said, what kind of purity do these Western Brahmins advocate? And they said, the Western Brahmins encourage their disciples like this. Please, good people, rising early, you should stroke the earth from your bed. If you don't stroke the earth, stroke fresh cow dung. If you don't stroke fresh cow dung, stroke green grass. If you don't stroke green grass, serve the sacred flame. If you don't serve the sacred flame, revere the sun with joined palms. If you don't revere the sun with joined palms, immerse yourself in water 3 times, including in the evening. The Western Brahmins advocate this kind of purity. I did not find the time this week to find the significance of these religious practices that is described in this sutta. And it seems to be somewhat of a satirical description of the Brahmin practices. So we know, I don't really feel that the Buddha was necessarily that mean to the other traditions, but as things get passed down, we actually do see very often in the suttas that different aspects of things that are sort of like problems in problems of samsara are described in a way which is kind of almost like humorous and very exaggerated. And that humorous and exaggerated description is meant to make the lesson memorable, easy to remember. So we know that for example, cow dung is something that's a precious commodity that can be used as a kind of a soap, and it can be used as a kind of a fuel, and it can be used as a kind of a fertilizer, so that for the ancient people, cow dung was, one of the friendly factors of life, but at the same time, cow dung is excrement, and so that's something that is in our Buddhist tradition an object for asubha practice, or the contemplation of that which is unattractive. And the sequence of teachings, like first touching the dirt, and then touching the cow dung, and then touching the grass, and then serving the fire and then serving the sun and then serving the water, it sort of sounds very confused and confusing, sort of all over the map. So I feel that this is a satire on religious practices. Brahmavara or anybody, can you think of any other places in the suttas that are humorous? Yes. So can I hear you? You're not muted. I'm sorry. Let me check my sound here. I had it all set a minute ago, but it's now everything is coming undone. Things fall apart. Uh, Here's my sound. Yeah. Try speaking again. No sound. I don't know what to do. Um,
Ayya, is Kachina there or Tavira?
There, I see. I hear your voice perfectly well.
Well,
And,
maybe they could help you sort this out.
Brahmavara, could you unmute yourself now again? Now talking? I think the difficulty is on your side, not on my side. Oh well. So we shall enjoy looking at your beautiful visage and watch your smiling face and reading your chat.
Can I add, Ayya?
Yes.
If Ayya Brahmavara were to go to the set of icons at the bottom of her screen and mute, click on the little arrow to open that and to change the selection, because there's usually 2 or 3 ways you can use your mic, and just try changing one of them. It may be that, yeah, try experimenting.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'll give an example of a satire. The Buddha gave a rule that the monks were not supposed to wear shoes because that was considered too luxurious. And then they said, well, Venerable Sir, in the forest, there's thorns and stones and rocks and things. And it says, well, you can wear shoes in the forest, but don't wear them in the village. And then the monks wore shoes that were made with, decorated with golden stitches. And it says, no, you can't wear shoes that are decorated with golden stitches. And then they made shoes that were embroidered with pictures of animals. And he said, no, you cannot wear shoes that have embroidered pictures of animals. And then they made shoes that had pointed toes. And it said, no, you can't wear shoes with pointed toes. And so on like that. This is one of the rules that has the most special allocations in it, because the monks kept finding more and more ways to do silly things with their shoes. And so this is an example of something that's satirical and humorous that helps us. It actually helps us to learn, because it helps us to relax a little bit because it's funny. And so I'm taking the description of their Brahmanical purity as a satire. Okay, Richard.
Thank you. I'm wondering if this is more of a description of, okay, the Brahmin wakes up and there's dirt there. So he's kind of like respecting the earth. Okay, thank you, earth, right? But I lived in India for 2 years when I was very young. And common practice was to take cow dung and mix it with water because they think it's pure, okay? And then spread it out over the ground. So so either the ground has dirt or cow dung, and another possibility then is they could then spread green grass over that. So it could be that a particular Brahmin has a disciple or something. He's, the Brahmin is still in bed. He's already put the cow dung on the ground or something. Anyway, oh, okay, he wakes up, there's the cow. Or the disciple has already spread the green grass around. And then the next thing is the fire, because he's going to be staying right next to his sacrificial fire. So if maybe he forgets to do those things, he definitely should not forget to, tend the sacrificial fire. Anyway, that's just based on my experience, that's just a speculation on my part, but that
Yes.
might be kind of like a sequential of events of what's being described here.
Thank you.
But if he doesn't have a fire, then he respects the fire of the sun after that. So it's kind of like that.
And then the bathing after that. So there's a certain way in which that Brahmin tradition is very much kind of being associated with the hearth, which is associated with a home. And there is a way that our everyday life can be made to be holy or sacred through ritual, prayer, and thinking of the ordinary everyday things in life in the symbolic way of purity. So just like when we sweep the floor, we do this with mindfulness, and we may think that we're sweeping away the hindrances, or when we knock down cobwebs, we could think, oh, let me knock down the cobwebs in my mind, and so forth like that. So that's a good observation. Thank you. I'm going to go back and read a little further. Okay, so the Buddha said, the purity advocated by the Western Brahmins is quite different from that in the training of the Noble One. But what, Master Gautama, is purity in the training of the Noble One? Master Gautama, please teach me this. Well then, Brahmin, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. Yes, sir, Chunda replied. The Buddha said this. Chunda, impurity is threefold by way of body, fourfold by way of speech, and threefold by way of mind. How is impurity threefold by way of body? Here, it's when a certain person kills living creatures. They're violent, bloody-handed, a hardened killer, merciless to living beings. Next, they steal. With the intention to commit theft, they take the wealth or belongings of others from village or wilderness. And then third, they commit sexual misconduct. They have sexual relations with women who have their mother, father, both mother and father, brother, sister, relative, or clan as guardian. They have sexual relations with a woman who is protected on principle. That means protected by the Dhamma, which could refer to one who is a nun or a bhikkhuni who is protected by the Dhamma. Or who has a husband, or whose violation is punishable by law, or even one who has been garlanded as a token of betrothal. So in this case, the description of the three kinds of acts of the body correspond with three of the basic precepts. These are which a person who is not a stream winner would be capable of committing these kinds of misbehaviors by body. And they're described in a way which is disdainful, and that they find there's nothing respectable in this. It's not saying that, they do mercy killings, or they kill because they love their country, or they, kill because they're patriotic, or they kill because they're trying to do some other kind of good reason, or they're killing to protect their honor, or some kind of all the excuses people give for killing. They're just describing killing as a purely negative, violent, bloody-handed, hardened, without mercy. And then stealing is the intention of committing theft. Theft being the type of a deed that if you were caught in doing that, the law would scold you and say, you are a robber, you are a thief, and would punish you, legally punish you. It would cause stress and pain and upset. And then the sexual misconduct is given from a traditional male perspective, describing the kind of misconduct that a heterosexual man might commit towards women or girls. We extend this concept to include all beings and all kinds of persons. And we have the idea that children are people who are dependent. That's what it means being under protection of mother and father. So the family is trying to protect them from becoming sexualized too early. And likewise, if someone is married, or if they're in a committed relationship, if they've made a vow of faithfulness to their life partner, that one would not try to seduce them or rape them. And in this ancient system, there seems to be an allowance for voluntary sex outside of marriage between two consenting adults is not described within this as being an offense. But in modern times, I think we generalize this to think in any way that if you harm another, if you harm their dignity with your sexuality, that should fall under this rule. And that's what he means by that kind of impurity. I'd like to invite you to tell me something. Okay, there's a question.
So what does it mean by being protected by the Dhamma? Does that mean like when someone is in a monastic life?
If somebody has entered the monastic form, they're said to be protected by the Dhamma. So they've taken the vow of celibacy. Or if they've taken, even if they're only taking the vow of celibacy as part of the 8 precepts, the Uposatha precepts, I think you could also say that they're protected by the Dhamma. Yeah. how does this behavior destroy the peacefulness of the world? How does it destroy your inner peace? And how does it destroy the peace of vulnerable people who may be disturbed and upset because of this, being victims of this type of behavior? They could, if they feel that they're a victim of this kind of immoral acts, they could become overwhelmed with anger and resentment, or they could become traumatized and become overwhelmed by fear, or they could become form the intention of revenge, and they could in turn begin to act out with the same kind of unskillful deeds that they had experienced. And so this is bringing a continuous agitation and upset into the world. Okay, Gabriella.
Thank you, Ayya. I'd like to just sort of circle back to the very beginning of the sutta where Cunda describes the Brahmic practices. And it reminded me of another sutta, but I think it's in the Majjhima, about the two ascetics who practiced some sort of dog practice in order to attain enlightenment. And what I find so interesting with so many descriptions of the different practices, then just how they were just very, very much not related to anything really valuable. And it also reminds me of I don't know how to say it in Pali, but it's that belief in rites and rituals as a way of leading to liberation.
Yes, it would be exactly these kinds of practices which is described as the fetter of believing in rites and rituals. And there are many levels and gradations. If you talk about the dog practice or the naked practice or something like that, it's easy to mock the practice as being useless. But even something which is naturally good, let's suppose we believe in like a physical cleanliness as a matter to out of loving kindness. We don't want to be sick or to give anybody else a disease, and so we wash our hands and keep ourselves clean. But then that kind of cleanliness could evolve to become like a compulsive fetish, and it could become like an extreme mental disease where somebody keeps washing their hands again and again. They continuously washing and they never feel clean, and so it's like it's verged over because of the change of the attitude from being something that had a good reason into something that is some kind of a compulsion that's separated from reality. The Buddha said that the Dhamma that he taught is supposed to be good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. And so these practices that he's suggesting of avoiding this kind of impurities, you should be able to directly see with your own experience what the gain and the benefit is. And if you're keeping your moral purity and it's increasing your peace and happiness, then you can feel that you've got a hold of it the right way. But if you're keeping your moral purity and it's causing you to be angry all the time, or it's causing you to be uptight all the time, or causing you to be um, not able to meditate because you're worrying about your moral purity or something like that, then you might think that you've picked it up the wrong way, and you need to make an adjustment. So all of these practices do have that quality that it can be tested. You can know for yourself that this kind of practice leads to more suffering, and the opposite kind of practice leads to reducing, allaying, minimizing, and finally coming to the end of suffering. There's another mention, those who've been traumatized may use intoxicants to escape their feelings. Yes, and that becomes another kind of disorder. So another kind of harm that can be donated out into the world. Something that we're going to continue on next week. My dear friend, Venerable Kachayana, there, gave us a very wonderful reading this morning about purifying the faculties so that one remains at peace when we are touched by different kinds of contacts. And so there's one way that it's like what we're putting out is either peaceful or not peaceful. And then there's another side of it, which is when we are taking in our experiences, we can take them in a way which is either peaceful or not peaceful. So if you think that you can be in a world where nobody is ever going to kill you, where nobody will ever steal from you, or where nobody will ever insult your dignity in some sexual way, you might have a hard life because you couldn't find such a perfect world where you would really be safe all the time. So you can't necessarily rely on the world giving you safety in that way, although it would be lovely if it were so. And it would be really lovely if we lived in a civilization that was, even if we could get to be like 99% pure, so that people could, most of the time, be safe and feel it was really weird and unusual if there were any kind of a violation of morality. That's much easier than being in a world where it seems to be normal and expected for there to be such violations. Okay. Going back to the shared screen. I'm going to give Ayya Brahmavara some different advice. That same little icon at the bottom with the sound settings, if you open up the settings, you can experiment with your microphone and see whether or not you could get your microphone to work.
Thank you, Ayya. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
There you are.
I'm so sorry about the technical hitch.
Can you add anything about the impurity by way of body, or do you want to teach us about the purity by way of speech?
Well, I'd just say one thing that's in my mind very much is really what you've been saying, Ayya Sobhana, around, how safe we can be when we keep the precepts and how unsafe we can feel when, the precepts are not being maintained by majority of people, and just reflecting on our whole history as a species, really, and the places where we live, remembering that these places have been stolen and genocides have taken place, and these things are still happening in the world, and really this gives for me a sense of great urgency, because how imperative it is really to practice for liberation in such conditions.
Okay, thank you. How is is impurity fourfold by way of speech. These are the 4 kinds of right speech, 4 kinds of wrong speech. It's when a certain person lies. They're summoned to a council, an assembly, a family meeting, a guild, or to the royal court, and asked to bear witness. Please, mister, say what you know. Not knowing, they say, I know. Knowing, they say, I don't know. Not seeing, they say, I see. And seeing, they say, I don't see. So they deliberately lie for the sake of themselves or another or for some trivial worldly reason. Then they speak divisively. They repeat in one place what they heard in another, so as to divide people against each other. And so they divide those who are harmonious, supporting division, delighting in division, loving division, speaking words that promote division. They speak harshly. They use the kinds of words that are cruel, nasty, hurtful, offensive, bordering on anger, not leading to samadhi, not leading to immersion or concentration, or samadhi. And then the last one, they talk nonsense. Their speech is untimely and is neither factual nor beneficial. It has nothing to do with the teaching or the training. Their words have no value and are untimely, unreasonable, rambling, and pointless. This is fourfold impurity by way of speech. So this includes both this open speech that we could speak to another, and as well the internal speech. So if somebody has a big imagination and they tell themselves stories, one could tell a story about one's own self, which is cruel and harsh. Or one could go into these kind of flights of fancy or imagination that are pleasant in a very superficial kind of way. I know that when I first started meditation, and I took a 2-week retreat at the Bhavana Society that they had over the Christmas and the New Year, which was completely silent, with no Dhamma talks or no instructions, no guidance whatsoever. It was just following the schedule and going into the hall and sitting in meditation, and then being on your own. At this time, I didn't completely know how to meditate, and on one occasion, I thought of a story, and I began just imagining the evolution of the story. It was like I was writing a novel in my head, and I was able to sit completely rock solid, motionless on the cushion for 5 hours, because that's how long it took me to write the complete novel. But really, all I was doing was engaging in internal sampapalapa, or a useless speech of just like entertaining the mind. Of course, when that happens, it's always possible to be mindful and to understand what's going on or where the impulse is coming from. But indulging those kind of thoughts, not helpful, not beneficial. Richard.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, it's interesting here that of these 4 types of speech, only the harsh speech, which is like ill will, one of the 5 hindrances, keeps one from attaining concentration. Because we know a Buddhist cousin, uh, David Daha, is that how you pronounce it?
Devadatta.
Anyways, yeah, he supposedly could master concentration very much. That's why they say he could attain supernormal powers and things like that. But he also, at the same time, was able to create schisms in the
Uh-huh.
sangha. So
Well, he tried to kill
so
me.
there's
Yes.
yeah, well, so but I think his desire to kill the Buddha is more out of envy, not so much anger. Just he was, according to history, he was always Buddha's. Buddha always bested him at everything. And so he's like, "Can I win even one time?" And then it carried over. That same type of mentality carried over into the sangha in the same way. Um,
The speech is kind of a justification, isn't it? So, like, if I want to kill, let's say the deer is eating my vegetables. The wild deers are coming in the garden and eating my vegetables, and so I want to kill the deer. But before I can actually kill the deer, I have to bring myself up to hate them. And so, in order to hate them, I need to insult them. And so, instead of thinking of them as being like a Bambi or something being so darling and lovable, I could think of them as being like a large rodent or something like that, as something like that, dirty and diseased or something like that. And so these kind of ill will, these speeches are very much coupled with the supporting and enabling, giving permission to the bodily bad acts. So the derisive speech of Devadatta in thinking that he could be better than the Buddha by being more strict in his regulations than the Buddha was part of the justification for eventually trying to kill the Buddha. Was there another comment about this part about speech? So this is the fourfold impurity by way of speech. It's very difficult to be 100% pure or to completely avoid these kinds of impurity. It's very easy to tell a lie, like a white lie, or some kind of a socially inconvenient thing, like, what, does this robe make me look fat? Something like that. And then you say, oh no, darling, it doesn't make you look bad. And, or does, who did that? And say, I don't know, something like that. So that's why, like, under pressure, it's very difficult to always be honest. And even, like the truth is, it's very hard to even sometimes to know what the truth is. It takes a lot of effort and endeavor to be really committed to discovering the real truth about a situation. So if you don't understand the situation, you make up some plausible explanation that is sort of kind of true or kind of explains it, but it's not really true. It's just almost like bridging the gap of what you've experienced that you don't really understand. And speaking divisively, people who have opinions, it's so easy to speak divisively. To always be so, like, considerate in speaking, to think, I think I know better than what other people know, but am I speaking in a way that is going to be disturbing or offensive to others? And similarly with harshness, like if we don't bother to care about how the other person feels, even something that's depending on the vulnerability of another person, something that's minor can be or something that's just one word or a few words, can be hurtful and harmful. And if we have to be very sensitive and aware in order to avoid cruelty, nastiness, offensiveness. Um, so this is the fourfold impurity by way of speech. Ananaya.
I just wanted to, I can't remember the number of the sutta, but regarding lying or white lies or whatever, I remember in this sutta that, no, I'm sorry, not this sutta, the one I'm recalling, that the Buddha said that lying was a really, really, very bad offense, and that even hyperbole was in that regard equally. So exaggerations of things in speech is really, really harmful as well, according to what he was saying. So,
Right.
And I guess if we ever thought that about speech in another regard, but certainly current events, we can see how speech has really, really been harmful when it's been misused, as it has what we're experiencing currently in this country. So, yeah, it can't be understated of how what a problem that is, and how dangerous it is.
It might be in the Samanyapala Sutta, this idea that of not telling even the smallest lie, not even as a joke, as part of striving to make one's virtue as pure and perfect as a polished conch shell. Stories which are fictional can sometimes reveal the truth and make the truth come home to the heart in a way that discursive speech is not able to do. And so when a story is clearly a story, I believe that it is not a violation of this rule to tell stories which are used to reveal something which is true. It's the best example in my experience of that. There was a famous cartoon novel called Mouse, which was about the experience of the Jews and the Polish people and the Nazis in Germany. And so it was told in terms of these barnyard animals. And it was also framed in the real picture of the author and his father, who was a survivor of the Holocaust. And so basically, it's like the Holocaust itself, the real Holocaust, was too painful to look at, too painful to think about. You just had to just cover your eyes and ears and not, because it was just too painful. But then this little story about these little animals, somehow that was made it, safe enough that you would be willing to look and to understand what was going on and what the experience was. So that would be one example of the type of reason why fiction can be useful for bringing to the truth. Okay. Now we can go on. How is impurity threefold by way of mind? It's when a person is covetous, they covet the wealth and belongings of others. Oh, if only their belongings were mine. So that's a specific version of greed, not just wanting to have something pleasant, but wanting to have something pleasant that we don't have the right to have. Stealing is adinadana, taking something that's not given. So if a person or if the universe gives us a pleasant experience, we could say the sky is very blue and it's warm, and one could enjoy the blue sky and the warm air. Nature has given that to us. So that's not the same as the kind of unstable mind. So nature has not given us something that would be a little less warm. See, so if I want it to be cooler than it is right now, then that would be like coveting something that is not coming to me. And that coveting is causing instability, is causing a distraction, is causing instability of the mind, and is causing that reaching and grasping, which is very much part of the engine for the round of rebirth. That when we keep on trying to grab and get what we don't have, grabbing and getting and grabbing and getting, and then we come to the very last moment of our life and the mind is still grabbing and getting, grabbing, wanting to have a little bit more life. Let me just stay alive for another one day, just for one more hour. Let me stay alive. And if the mind is reaching and grabbing like that, then that's how we get to have a rebirth. And that is of the same sort of flavor as coveting and wishing to get the wealth and belongings of others. They have ill will and hateful intentions, thinking may these beings be killed, slaughtered, slain, destroyed, or annihilated. And they have wrong view. Their perspective is distorted. And the particular kind of wrong view that's described here is there's no meaning in giving sacrifice or offerings. There's no fruit or result of good and bad deeds. There's no afterlife. There's no obligation to mother and father. No beings are reborn spontaneously. There's no ascetic or Brahmin who was well attained and practiced and who describes the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. This is the threefold impurity by way of mind. I think greed and ill will are the ones that are very easy for everybody to see, especially ill will because it's so unpleasant, so it's kind of natural that we want to get out of it. Wrong view is much more difficult to see because when we're caught up in wrong view, we could be like a fish in the water. The wrong view is the water that the mind is swimming in, and we can't really know that it's a wrong view until we are able to, jump out of the water and realize that there's something else which is not water. But in particular, this materialistic point of view that did not see the continuity of the karma over multiple lives in the round of samsara is something that the Buddha points out in this section. And it's almost as if the eternalist view, which thinks that myself, my being or my soul is going to live forever in heaven, was less dangerous, and this purely materialistic view was more dangerous. So, in the modern world, some philosophers say that 300 or 400 years ago, the majority of people found it very easy to believe in heaven and to believe in the afterlife, to believe in God, and that was sort of like the where the civilization was at. And because everybody believed that conditioned a lot of things about the natural morality of people. But then they say, the philosophers say that in the modern times, especially in Europe and America, the majority of people don't really believe in an afterlife. They don't believe there's any real world, any another life, or a heaven, or heavens and hells. The majority of people, deep down, are really materialistic. Even those who describe themselves as religious, they may claim to be religious, but like the more they shout about that being religious, actually they're shouting about it is hiding underneath. They're not really convinced anymore, because there's some kind of a cultural change in our civilization, and this materialism could be one reason why our society has fallen to be where these all these other unskillful acts are so much more commonplace than perhaps they might have been at different times in history. I want to go and I'm watching the time. I want to go through the opposites, the wholesome deeds, which is really clarifies the meaning, and also it challenges us to think, well, could I really undertake this as a practice and really intend to keep all 10 of these, or to even keep one of them with a lot more sincerity than I was doing before. The Buddha said, when you have these 10 ways of doing unskillful deeds, then if you rise up early, whether or not you stroke the earth from your bed, you are still impure. Whether or not you struck fresh cow dung, you are still impure. Whether or not you struck green grass, you are still impure. Whether or not you serve the sacred flame, you are still impure. Whether or not you revere the sun with joined palms, you are still impure. Whether or not you immerse yourself in water 3 times, you are still impure. Why is that? These 10 ways of doing unskillful deeds are impure and make things impure. It's because of those who do these 10 kinds of unskillful deeds that hell, the animal realm, the ghost realm, or any other bad places are found. Cunda, purity is threefold by way of the body, fourfold by way of speech, threefold by way of mind. How is purity threefold by way of body? We'll look at these beautiful practices. When a person gives up killing living creatures, renounce the rod and the sword, they are scrupulous and kind, living full of compassion for all living beings. They give up stealing. They don't with the intention to commit theft take the wealth or belonging of others from village or wilderness. They give up sexual misconduct. They don't have sexual relations with women who have their mother, father, and so forth as their guardians, even to the extent of somebody who's been garlanded as a token of betrothal. That means somebody who's engaged to be married. A lot of times we think Buddhism morality is described by abstaining from things rather than affirmatively doing things. But we see here this is a bit more of a positive view in terms of being scrupulous and kind, living full of compassion for living beings. And the opposite, the positive side of non-stealing. When I was with the Quakers, they had an idea of fair trade, that in practicing business, instead of naturally trying to get a better deal, advantage yourself and disadvantage the other person, they would want to make sure that in any kind of a deal that was made, that both sides got a fair trade. That would be a good example of not stealing. Another kind of not stealing is patience, so that if the universe doesn't give me what I want, if I whine and complain and hint around and connive and exert pressure, trying to cause the universe to give me what I want, in a way it's like I'm trying to steal something that's not otherwise naturally coming to me. But if I have like a sort of like a sensitivity to allow what should come to come, what should be given to be given, having that kind of patience and humility, that's like a positive opposite of stealing. And if I am particularly sensitive about the dignity of a person with their sexuality, and if I'm showing my respect and appreciation for their dignity, even in ways that are subtle, in terms of like how I might or might not stare at them, or how I might or might not, make jokes that would be embarrassing, or something like that. That would be like a positive expression of being very far away from sexual misconduct. Any other ideas about these three, about the positive side of these three kinds of bodily purity? Ayya Brahmavara.
Yeah, thank you, Ayya, because the sense you give in what you've just been saying is that of, respecting, the integrity of others, or the autonomy of others, or the dignity of others. And that's a very beautiful kind of, that runs through all these three ways of relating, with respect, yeah, and harmlessness also. And it brings to mind for me also right intention, the intention to not harm, not be cruel, and to practice renunciation. So it's like avoiding any kind of harm, loving kindness and compassion towards others, and also turning away from that covetousness, not seeking to get more, but rather being willing to let go of that acquisitiveness, and to share or to respect, other people's property, other people's space. So, yeah, thank you.
What about as a monastic with the generosity of the donors? Can you give some examples of how a monastic should be careful?
Yeah, thank you, Ayya. Yes, that's a really important aspect for us of our practice, isn't it? Where the encouragement is to always be contented with less, and to not even think about getting more. And so gratitude for whatever's offered. And if somebody wants to, offer something, to always, if invited, to choose the least extravagant and the most humble offering, and to be really genuinely delighted with that. So this is like our standard, and it's a beautiful encouragement towards that renunciation, which of course brings its benefits and abundance once we make the leap and stop trying to get more. We can recognize contentment with less, and what a treasure that is.
Yeah, great, thank you. Then the fourfold purity by way of speech. When a person gives up lying, they're summoned to a council, an assembly, a family meeting, a guild, or the royal court, and asked to bear witness. Please, mister, say what you know. Not knowing, they say, I don't know. Knowing, they say, I know. Not seeing, they say, I don't see. And seeing, they say, I see. They don't deliberately lie for the sake of themselves or another, or for some trivial worldly reason. In the monastic form, very regularly we're aware of having meetings. And meetings, the formal meetings in a way is a wonderful time to practice having that kind of clarity and just taking that extra moment to breathe and to be sure, and not to just say something because it feels good or because it's some kind of like emotional speech, but something that to have it be considered, that we've been able to take that second to say, well, is this really true? And then to speak very clearly, honestly, and with humility about the things that we really know to be true. And so then with that kind of speech, it has a great advantage in community life. If we think that people are really listening to one another and that they're speaking based on this endeavor for the truth and not just to get an advantage or to or for some other reason, then one could speak gently but truthfully and have the idea that you will be heard, and even have an open mind about it, because it could be that the truth you know is not matching with the truth that somebody else experiences. And so being able to hear something that somebody else might express as being their truth from their experience, and being able to trust that they're not just playing a game or trying to get an advantage, but they're really speaking with their truth. So having that mutual trust that enables real communication, and it's not then necessary to be escalating. I've read that according to the I guess the biologists or the zoologists or something like that, that even animals engage in bartering, exchanges, not to mention humans. And whatever you have to sell, this is a natural in the whole animal world, is to try to make the thing that you have to give look like it's great, looks like it's even better or more precious than it really is, so that you can get more in exchange. And so then through evolution, animals learn how to be deceptive, so that, let's say, the male of the species learns to have bright feathers so that he would look like a really good mate. But it's kind of like it's a show, it's a deception. And because there's a certain amount of deception going on, then the person or the animal or the bird on the other side, who's the customer, learns to be skeptical and needs to doubt whether it's really true. You know, I mean, this bird has brought me 3 baubles and a trinket, and I could, look with a skeptical eye to see if that one really should be let into my nest for this season. And so then that mistrust and dishonesty is something that's kind of a very deep tendency. So it's really going the opposite of that. And the comparison to the court of law or a guild or a formal proceeding is like in a forum where truth is really given its value. And in order to discover the truth together in conversation with people, if we can make that extra effort to go against the grain of our instincts and to be really honest, and correspondingly to be trusting. Gabriella.
Thanks, Ayya. This reminds me of a study that was done some years ago with infants, about 6 or 7 months ago, where they were seeing just how young do children develop that sense of fair play, or mostly fair. I'll say fair play. It might have been some other way of expressing it. So they had the child sit with the mother, and they had a little puppet show, and these two puppets were exchanging a ball, a game, back and forth. And then one of the puppets stole the ball, and the other puppet looked sad. And then after that little play, the infant was offered a choice of which puppet they would take. And almost all of them chose the puppet that had the ball stolen from them.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was an interesting study on just how young, we as human beings have a sense of fair play or justice.
Yeah, thank you. Reading on about divisive speech. They give up divisive speech. They don't repeat in one place what they heard in another so as to divide people against each other. Instead, they reconcile those who are divided. Supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. This word that's translated as harmony is samagi, or samaga, which is something that's very much valued in monastic communities. So causing a schism or a break, a division, where a community splits up is considered to be really dangerous. And the opposite of that, the harmonious community, is where people are being kind towards one another, blending like milk and water, and always having that good intention. So even when like carrying news from here to there is something that human beings do and they need to do it. But if we're so clear about the intention that we're never carrying a tale or carrying a message or reporting what we saw one place to another place, we're never doing it for the purpose of causing a split or a break. But we're always thinking what's the most skillful way that's for the welfare and benefit of all those who are concerned and touched. Even it could be that at times things happen that are unskillful and people make mistakes, and it's necessary to report about something that's unskillful. But when it's done, like, why are we pointing out somebody's mistakes and unskillful behavior? We're pointing them out not because we want to harm that person, but because we want to bring out a correction of that unskillful behavior. So when the lay people go to the Buddha and complain about the monks, it's not because they want to hurt the monks, it's because they want good monks. So I guess that's another aspect of divisive speech, is to be able to not only hear praise, but also hear criticism, and to hear it with that spirit of kindness and seeking for harmony. So if I hurt your feelings, please tell me. And if I am practicing well, I won't get a resentment about it and then try to get back at you by, saying something about you, something like that. But instead, if you pointed something out to me, I should say, oh, thank you for pointing that out. Let me try to consider it. considering that our world is divided, how can we do this? Is it possible to speak up and speak out with the intention to reconcile those who are divided right now in this world where so many people are divided? Is it possible to speak up for harmony, for unity? Ayya Brahmavara?
Thank you, Ayya. That feels like a really important question, because I'm so conscious of how divided the world is and people's belief systems and so forth, and how much we can help by maintaining a sense of what's true and what's valuable, which is to follow the precepts and to let go of our opinions and views, because we really don't know. And I'm just reminded of how the Buddha encouraged us in how to speak on Dharma, how to share on Dharma, to not point to any particular individuals, but rather, to speak about qualities. And so I feel this is something, like, it's important to emphasize how important it is for us not to harm and not to steal and not to kill. And we can say those things without pointing the finger anywhere, but as universal truths. And that doesn't actually, hopefully, cause disharmony. Hopefully that can not be offensive to anybody. And for me, this is such a question, how to speak out when we are aware of wrongdoing without creating more defilements in people or division between people. And I do feel the Buddha's given us the guidance, and it's this emphasis not on individuals, but on the qualities and on the universal Dharma, and the precepts. For me, we have a kind of duty to encourage others to keep the precepts as well as keeping them ourselves.
Yes. Thank you. They give up harsh speech. They speak in a way that's mellow, pleasing to the ear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable to the people. They give up talking nonsense. Their words are timely, true, meaningful, in line with the teaching and training. So these are the four kinds of right speech, the four verbal commas that we can do. And then now, the threefold purity of the mind. It's when a person is content. They don't covet the wealth and belonging of others. Oh, if only those belongings were mine. And so this is directly corresponding to not stealing. That with contentment, we're protecting our own happiness with what we have, so that there's not any impulse that would even cause us to begin to go down the road of thinking of taking something that doesn't belong to us or something we should not have. They have a kind heart and loving intentions. May these sentient beings live free of enmity and ill will, untroubled and happy. And so then this goes directly to not killing and not hurting people with our words, or not harming their dignity. So this entire practice of the positive practice of kindness, then the reverse side of that is harmlessness. So not to do any harm whatsoever, because the heart is overflowing with the positive value of kindness and our loving intentions. In the Pali, those are really expressed as negatives. So the kind heart is called the non-ill will chitta. So the non-ill will heart is what Madhusujata translates as the kind heart. And apadutta mana, so the less harm or no harm, the mind of none ill will. So that's free of enmity and free of ill will. And then finally, the undistorted perspective. This is the right view. There's meaning in giving, sacrifice, and offerings. There are fruits and results of good and bad deeds. There is an afterlife. There's an obligation to mother and father. There are beings reborn spontaneously. There are ascetics and Brahmins who are well attained and practiced, who describe the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. This is the threefold purity by way of mind. These are the 10 ways of doing skillful deeds. When you have these 10 ways of doing skillful deeds, if you rise early, whether or not you stroke the earth from your bed, you're still pure. Whether or not you stroke fresh cow dung, stroke green grass, serve the sacred flame, revere the sun, immerse yourself in water 3 times, you are still pure. Why is that? These 10 ways of doing skillful deeds are pure and make things pure. Suchi karana, they make purity. It's because of those who do these 10 kinds of skillful deeds that gods, humans, or any other good places are found in the universe. And not included in the sutta, but there also are the kinds of kammas that we do which are tending to lead towards the end of kamma, the practices, the wisdom practices that are leading to liberation and the noble attainments, becoming finally freed from the taints and coming to know that personally one is beyond rebirth. But to the extent that these 10 are spoken of here, they're spoken of in terms of the heavenly, beautiful, or pleasant result of the wholesome kammas, as opposed to the painful, hellish result of the unwholesome kammas. And we shouldn't, even if we aspire to nibbana, we shouldn't think that I'm going beyond this pair of dualities. Because a person, it's the 10 courses of good deeds become almost like incorporated into the mind of one who has any kind of the noble attainments. And until you know that you're awake, you should give a lot of sincerity to trying to make these practices real. I just wanted to come to the end of the sutta because our time is up, but I'm happy to stay on as long as people have questions and comments to add. Cunda the smith said to the Buddha, "Excellent sir, from this day forth may the Buddha remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life." Now I'll invite Richard's comment.
Thank you, Ayya. This section number 10, where it says he holds right view. So this right view is mundane right view, and it's different from noble right view. Noble right view is when you actually enter onto the path. But this mundane right view, Buddha says, is necessary. And it's interesting today because there's a number of scholars that talk about secular Buddhism, and a lot of things they say, like there's no rebirth, there's no real karma in the sense of from one life to another, action and reaction, things like that. A lot of things they negate is in this mundane right view. But my experience, and I've heard them talk a lot and stuff out of curiosity, is that they also don't progress. Buddhism for them becomes more of like a way to have a calm mind and a more even temperate life. But they don't really progress in any sort of actual experience, like it says here. Those where is it? Those ascetics and Brahmins of right conduct and right practice who have realized this world and other world for themselves by direct knowledge and make it known to others. They don't have these type of experiences, and therefore it leads them to think that, oh, there's no rebirth, karma doesn't really carry on. Buddha was really just some sort of secular humanist, just trying to make like a nice life or something for everyone to follow and have a nice, calm, peaceful life, generally speaking. But the point I'm making, I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm trying to say that you really have to at least try to accept these things in number 10. And has correct perspective thus: there is what is given, sacrificed, and offered. There is fruit and result of good and bad actions. So this is like the basis of Paticca Samuppada. All Dhamma is subject to arising, is subject to cessation. So you, in order to understand that, you have to understand that there's actions and reactions to our choices in existence. And it's our mind that's going on and on and on and on and involving us and telling us stories. You should be this, you should be that, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, in terms of a worldly basis. And that keeps us revolving through birth and death, through this samsara. There is this world, the other world. There is mother and father. There are beings spontaneously reborn. Spontaneously reborn are like in the heavens above us. They don't have fathers and mothers there. They just appear there, right? So there is heaven, right? There are in the world ascetics and Brahmins, etc., which I quoted already. Anyways, I always try to emphasize this view as a necessary ground. It's like the earth. In order to build a fantastic, beautiful palace, right, you have to have the earth. So this is like, that's why it's mundane, right? Mundane right view. This is the ground on which now you're going to build the magnificent edifice, beautiful temple or something, on top of it. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we were speaking, I was speaking to one of our visitors here about studying samsara. The first noble truth is dukkha. And the study of the first noble truth is understanding the entire realm of the cycle of samsara. And that there is a lot to investigate that can be investigated by an intelligent person who's open-minded, who wants to understand causation and how the choices or actions or ways of thinking that we have taken on board and taken into ourself then has the subsequent repercussions and results, and then looking both within the framework of this life and in the framework of the broad extent of all the causes and conditions that happened previously that have created the particular moment in which we exist, and then in terms of the way, studying about death and studying, what could happen to causation when an individual person dies. Does causation just disappear and stop working, or is it still happening with the death and rebirth in samsara? So these things are definitely, to some extent or another, knowable by experience. And what you don't know from your own direct experience, you may understand by your faith and confidence in teachers who have realized the direct experience of the wisdom about the previous existences of beings, and who are able to give the testimony from the evidence of their own experience. But dukkha is, when you understand dukkha, when you really understand it, then you don't want to cling to anything. You would no longer want to add 10 cents or even 2 drops of energy into continuing the round of samsara. You would want to stop completely, that you're, at least personally, individually, the whole world is going around and around in samsara, but at least individually, let me step aside from contributing any more to that. And this is where the motivation, the urgency comes to do those purifications. But first, learning how to purify those 10 courses of unwholesome karma, and then learning how to cultivate and develop, sustain and perfect those 10 wholesome courses of karma is brings you to that level, that psychological well-being, health and happiness, calmness, brightness, confidence, and so forth. And that happy state is a wonderful place to be able to develop the opening of the Dhamma eye and the supramundane wisdom. Okay, I'll call on Karina.
Hi, thank you. I know we're going over time, so just a quick comment. Thank you everyone for your comments. I was thinking about what you said earlier, how to be able to kill or to harm someone, you have to be able to hate them, and to hate them, you have to be able to insult them. And this is a funny story about my kitty. I learn a lot. I got a kitty about 1.5 years ago, and I love her so much. But she does have a tendency to wake up very early and meow for food and to play, like at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is early for us. And the way I speak with her is very sweet. So there is a part of me that could say, oh, why are you being so annoying? Why are you waking up so early? But instead it's like, oh, you poor thing, you've been in the house all day and you want to play, and this is your wake time, and I know you're going to sleep all afternoon. And it's just so interesting because I continuously speak with her that way, and it's built up this love for this kitty. I love her so much, and I can just see how she's just an animal with different needs that may or may not match my human life, my human schedule of when she needs to do certain things. But just how important right speech is, and how it can color things down the road to hate and to harm someone if you're not careful how you speak, how you think even.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's a wonderful observation.
Great, thank you.
I'll invite Brahmavara to give a closing thought about this lesson and what the significance is for us.
Oh, thank you so much, Ayya. Yeah, I'm just really reflecting on how these 10 are like the guardians of the world, and how beautiful it is to know about how to live skillfully, and how doable it is, and how we can look after ourselves in this way, and also we can extend our compassion and kindness and see how we might be able to help others also to find this safety and security. Step one, as Richard said, it's like the ground we stand on. This is our foundation, so to make it solid, make it good. And so encouraging, this teaching. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention, Ayya Sobhana.
Okay. We can close by giving respect to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Elias, Laurel.